We are not merely distracted, we are divided. We are not merely overwhelmed, we are disoriented. And until we name what it means to become whole, we will continue mistaking noise for life. So here's the question: what does it actually mean to be centered in a chaotic world? Welcome to Centered, Becoming Whole in a Chaotic World. This is a podcast about orientation, integration, and the lifelong work of becoming whole. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong, a PhD exercise physiologist with a deep interest in the intersection of the physical and the spiritual. My guest is Andrew Grinbaum, a soulful leader, business strategist, and founder of the Spirituality in Business Institute. Andrew works with leaders from major firms as well as hundreds of small business owners, helping them rediscover their purpose, build work environments where people genuinely thrive, and integrate spirituality into systems that run their organizations. Andrew, welcome. I'd like to say welcome back, but we've changed the podcast. You were my first guest on this season of the second season of We Have a Spiritual Problem, which has now transitioned to Centered, Becoming Whole in a Chaotic World. And I think when I made that transition, it's like you were first on my list for guests, the people I got to bring back on here. So I'm excited for this conversation today. I know it's going to be a very deep and rewarding conversation for those that listen and persist through the entire episode. So if you are tuning in, stay tuned because I think you're on for a wild ride. And so first question, we're just going to dive into the deep questions. Let's start with, was there a pivotal experience that forced you to reconsider how you were living?
Sure. So that's a great question because there were many times. So the first answer is people think there's a pivot, like one time, you're the luckiest person in the world. Because you're going to have pivots all the time, especially if you want to grow, internally, if you're growing spiritually, whatever that means for you. So there were many, many times like this. But the one I was thinking about as you asked that question was, tell me if I spoke, I don't think I mentioned this in the last we spoke about when I was in corporate America and I was slowly killing myself. Did I talk about that? I don't think so.
I think you might have a little bit, but
okay,
not.
That's really
you can always reiterate.
Yeah. So after grad school, I was in New York City working in publishing at a really, prestigious job. Publishing is really prestigious, and I was a marketing manager, and but I just hated working at this company, and I knew that the corporate world wasn't for me. These big corporations, and I've always, before that I was always independent, and since then I've been independent. And I just couldn't handle. I am too rebellious and independent, and I just couldn't play the corporate game. So of course I was getting my butt whooped, and I had already started studying something called Kabbalah and journeying inward and studying spirituality and studying the Kabbalah for a couple years. But I thought this is such a great gift from the universe, right? This incredible job right out of grad school. But because it wasn't aligned with what I needed to do, I started getting physical symptoms, heartburn, skin rashes, buzzing in the ears. I went tinnitus. I went to doctors. Everything that could, coughing, all sorts of things starting to happen. And long story short, and I knew somewhere because I had been studying. I was pretty young, but I really recognized, there could be something there spiritually or emotionally, because all the doctors couldn't find anything wrong with me. And I was super healthy. I was in my 20s, working out 5 days a week, but I was slowly killing myself. And it was very scary to leave that job. But when I left it, literally within a week, all my symptoms cleared up.
Wow.
Literally. And I knew it was going to happen too. I was ignoring it. But the ringing in the ears. I thought I was losing my hearing. I'd be on the subway and it was the ring. It was so I wouldn't hear the doors when they tell the doors are opening and closing. I couldn't hear it. But I realized that I wasn't listening to myself. Right. And that was the message. I wasn't even listening to the messages. So And the itching in my skin, I had all this like eczema and stuff. I was just like, it was also spiritual. Like I was just itching to get out of there or something. That was the message from my body. My body was smarter than me. And so my body is telling me all these messages. Again, once I left, everything cleared up. So I was like, duh, you got to listen to yourself. Forget about the God or whatever. Just listen to your body. And since then, I've studied a lot of, I would say, alternative medicine and things like that. And I have books on, the body knows and all these kind of books that explain to you what are the messages of all these symptoms. Of course, you shouldn't ignore science. And everybody in my family is, by the way, a doctor. I'm the only one who isn't. I'm the black sheep of the family. I'm the only non-doctor. So, of course, I respect science and medicine and so forth. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think science is a conspiracy. I think it's valid. It is there to serve us. But all these kind of messages are so important. And so that was, I think, one of the first times I realized, if I'm not centered, I'm going to get messages. I'm going to go off center. So that was the first experience. I was like 23 years old, something like that.
Yeah, it's amazing. The more I progress through life, the more I'm seeing the connection between the science and the spiritual, the physical and the spiritual, and it can't be ignored. But you can't ignore one versus the other. You can't just totally lean into science, and you can't totally lean into the spiritual. They're too connected.
Correct.
And so, where do you see modern culture working against human flourishing?
Oh, where do we begin? We don't have enough time to talk about that. Everything. I would say over the last, we've in a way become much more physical, even though we've become technically much more spiritual. What do I mean by that? It's that, like what we're doing now, right? 20 years ago, we couldn't have had this talk, right? Everything is spiritual today. Everything is virtual. It's all zeros and ones and energy. Right? Everything we're doing. However, instead of bringing us, some ways it can bring us closer, right? And that takes effort. All the spiritual technology, because 100 years ago, if you would have explained, YouTube to somebody, they would have thought, you're insane, you're crazy, right? So we have all this incredible technology that 100 years ago would have been considered spiritual, but it takes effort to use it to help people connect. It's much easier to scroll, to get on social media and catastrophize. And I think that's one way we have to recognize that there's nothing wrong. This is just this landmark case now against social media just came out, right? Just was Facebook and I don't exactly remember how many, but Facebook and a couple other social media platforms have been punished with like billions of dollars. You see this thing? Billions of dollars. So, yeah, it just came out that it's as addictive as tobacco, basically. That's what the courts are saying. And they have billions and billions of dollars in damages to pay. So, and it's true, and that's what we're doing. We're really damaging ourselves. But we have the opportunity to really connect with anybody. Like this show that you have, this podcast, can connect people all over the world. But that takes effort. It's easier for us to catastrophize, and what's happening is that all this social media is just, unfortunately, it's not news to anybody, it's separating us. So we're not using the technology that's, science is amazing, what is discovered, right? What it has done. All these computer scientists have given us these incredible breakthroughs. I just don't think they're getting that it's really a way for us to connect. Early in the 90s, I remember there was like there were a few social media like platforms before the modern iterations of social media platforms that were trying to bring people together. Do you remember this thing called The Well? It was in the 90s.
I don't remember that one.
And it was not monetized. There was no advertising, nothing like that. It was just bringing people together, and it was very deep. And somewhere along the way, we started monetizing it and clicks, and advertising, and it destroyed it. And now it's all about how controversial can you be. And I think that's really, because it's not just kids, it's adults too. It's baby boomers and Gen X who are online, and they're taking, and they know it, they're taking too much time catastrophizing. You can catastrophize a little bit. Check the news for 5 minutes. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I think we have these great, the other side, we have these great gifts to center us, to make us whole, because we can do these things like you're doing here. And it's very admirable, right? And you couldn't do it 20, 30 years ago. You could change the world with one podcast. But I think that's the problem, and also the solution is this technology.
Yeah, I think that's a great
your
point.
Question. I want.
No, and we'll dive deeper into it as we go. The idea that, technology is at fault of our problems is, I think, kind of ludicrous, because we have the choice in how we respond to anything that we interact with. And that's why we kind of lean into that, what I call the spiritual model, or the SPIES model, the spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social, that the balance of those things, that being centered, requires effort. It requires continued progress and growth in those areas. And so let's kind of dive through each of those 5 different dimensions of the SPIES model kind of individually, and see how they apply to you in your life and to your kind of centeredness and your self-formation. So what spiritual practices have been most formative in your life?
So there's been a few. First and foremost, Kabbalah, which is the metaphysical aspect, the metaphysics behind, or the deeper layer of Judaism. But there's Christian Kabbalists and Muslim Kabbalists and so forth. So it goes beyond religion. That's been really, really important to me. And a funny story about that too. When I was younger, all these quote unquote coincidences kept happening. These weird things kept happening to show me that I need to study Kabbalah. Like literally, like I would go into a bookstore and I'd walk by the metaphysical section and a book would fall on my head. And it was by Philip Berg, who became my teacher years later, like stuff like that. Or people would hand me a book. I'd be, oh, this is like religions for like, it has a rabbi on the title. Like, ugh, I don't want to. So I was completely against all that stuff. So that's been really, really important. And then, before that, I was open. I started opening up to spirituality through martial arts. I started that when I was very young. I was like 10, 11 years old. Got a couple black belts and stuff. But I knew from watching Kung Fu movies and things like that there was something deeper, right? You see these guys flying around. I don't think if there's anybody who could ever actually fly in Kung Fu, but they would talk about these deep spiritual things. So I knew there was something there. So one of the reasons I studied martial arts was to learn these deeper the inner stuff. Couldn't find a teacher to do it. But I started studying Qigong and things like that were a little bit deeper. And it was about breath, controlling your breath and the things you can do. So that was also very important. And I still use that stuff, breathing and this Qigong stuff I learned. But then I took it to the next level with Kabbalah and I combined it. And funny thing, I was speaking with he's a shiatsu master, a really hot. He teaches other masters. This Japanese guy I met in New York who was studying Kabbalah, and I asked him, why are you studying this? Don't you have your own shiatsu practice and you have all this lineage? And he told me all this stuff about. It's his theories. It hasn't been proven, but he showed me all these connections between martial arts and Japanese arts and Kabbalah and Judaism. I thought it was fascinating. For instance, he told me that the ninja, when they get to 10th level black belt, it's the highest black belt you can get. Right? You get first level, and that's like the highest level. At 10th degree black belt, they get something called Torah no Maki. Torah scroll. That's what it means. Torah Maki. And we know the Torah scroll is what the Jews read every Saturday in their synagogues. So there were many things like that. He had connections with the samurai and all this stuff. And I saw this fast, and that's why he was studying Kabbalah through a Jewish lineage, because he also wanted to learn the deep stuff, and he saw the connections between all the Japanese inner work and martial arts and shiatsu. I thought that was fascinating. I wish he'd write a book about it, because he still knows so much. His name is Sensei Nori, and we talk sometimes. And isn't that interesting? The ninja, after learning how to kill and fight and murder and assassinate at the highest level, you get just to see them, right, reading a Torah scroll. That's the big thing they get, and nobody knows what it is, right? Torah scroll, Torah Maki, Torah no Maki. That's what it's called. So stuff like that. So that's why Kabbalah has been integral in helping me become centered, and it's something. It's for everybody. You don't have to be spiritual or religious. You can even be an atheist and study Kabbalah. That's the beauty of it. And that's why all these scientists, Isaac Newton, Spinoza, you can go on and on, all these scientists studied it, because it's very practical.
So it's interesting, you kind of bring up the martial arts and, the ninjas and those type of people. In modern culture, we tend to very much separate the spiritual and the physical. So what does modern culture misunderstand about the role of the body in flourishing?
You mean from a point of view of the body? You mean the messages it sends?
Well, the messages it sends, just our physical health, our physical strength, the physical dimension of our wellness. How important is that to our overall flourishing? That it's not just distinct, that we have this spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social dimension.
Right. I think what a lot of people are missing, although it's becoming more and more integrated, I think we have to look at things holistically, with an H, and also holistically with a W. It's whole. So everything matters, right? Your spiritual self, your emotional self, your body, everything is connected. And so, by doing things like exercise, very important, you would know better than most, right? Your background. Even gentle exercises have a profound effect, right, on your biochemistry, which then has a profound effect on your emotional state, which can help you spiritually and can help you get centered. And it's interesting, being somebody who was a lifelong athlete, and I competed. I mentioned, right, I had all these black belts and stuff. I was very competitive in sports. I'm realizing now, in my middle years, that it's actually less is more. So you don't have to get crazy with exercise. All these people, I have friends who are in CrossFit, and they look great. But I'm like, you're not a professional athlete. They're in better shape than professional athletes. And, that's going to tear up your body, and then you're going to stop working out. But I noticed that if I just go, I have beautiful, park-like, I'm looking my backyard, beautiful. I live in Florida. It's always good weather and palm trees and green. And just even walking is centering, is balancing. You don't have to overthink, overcomplicate exercise. And when you go out, even for a simple walk, people who haven't exercised in a long time, they're like, oh, I have to go to a gym now and all this stuff. No, just go out and walk, no matter what weather. Go out and walk. And then maybe later you can do some push-ups, calisthenics, keep it easy. Especially if you're older, especially if you haven't worked out in 20, 30 years, right? Since high school. Some people haven't touched a barbell since high school, right? Gym class. So when you do that, especially if you're in a stressful state and you can't concentrate and you feel off balance, it's one of the best things you can do is do gentle exercise. And interesting, I can't remember his name, maybe you know his name. He was and I read his book decades ago. He was a gymnastics teacher, a coach at University of Michigan or Michigan State, I can't remember, and he had a lot of Olympians. And later, and he was the one who said, he was talking about this, how actually gentle exercise is much more beneficial. And I read this like 20 years ago, and I was still like lifting heavy. I'm like, this is nonsense. Although I knew it, I knew it spiritually that there was truth in it. But he was saying how, his athletes, these are Olympic level athletes going to try out qualify for the Olympics. He would give them 2 weeks off, I think every 6 weeks or something like that. Let them relax. You can't exercise. You have to relax. And then go back. So this whole thing about relaxation and exercise and using it to relax instead of getting built is something that, it's missing from a lot of the, like when I'm reading in the New York Times or online, they don't really talk about this. And what's popular, the latest craze, whether it's CrossFit or something else, it takes over. For a while, all my friends were going to Orange Theory. Something takes over, and people are working out really, really hard. Great. Or remember P90X, all these infomercials, right? Infomercials are on. And I think you just need to just do a little bit. And a lot of people who do a lot, there's a whole segment of the population that's doing nothing, right? And that's why we have all these medical issues in this world, right? In our country, at least. People aren't exercising. It's so good for you, but it's so great for your balance. It's so great for your emotions. It's so great for your state. If you incorporate just a little bit, don't overthink it.
Yeah, it's interesting that the majority of our population, and I think it's upwards of close to about 3/4 of the population, doesn't meet the minimum guidelines for physical activity. And so, we worry about overtraining, where the vast majority of us are horribly undertraining.
Yeah.
That's the bigger problem. But then when we do start to want to train, we start thinking we got to train like an athlete. And people don't realize athletes beat the crap out of their bodies. It's not normal to be trying to be superhuman. Yeah. And so, the moderate amount of exercise is really all it takes to just kind of stimulate the body and get us working in the right direction.
I'll tell you a funny story. I had a friend who was a really good swimmer, and he walked on his university swim team, and he's pretty good. He didn't get a scholarship, but he was very good. But after a few weeks of swimming, he was like, and they all hung out. He liked hanging out with the jocks, and they hung out with the track and field guys and all this stuff. But he was like, I just want to party in college. I want to meet girls. Then it was smoke. I want to smoke some cigarettes, so I want to enjoy myself. So he quit. He quit cold turkey, the swim team. And decades later, they had because he kept in touch, decades later, he met all these guys, especially track and field guys, but also swimmers, who really pushed their bodies, and even if they didn't get to the Olympics, they competed. That was their life. And all these guys now in their 40s and 50s, they all had like hip replacements and knee replacements. And he was back exercising. He was the healthiest one, and he spent his college years drinking beer and smoking cigarettes. Now, I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying that, he backed off, and it was the best thing because all his friends had all these surgeries. And I remember telling the story once, at a dinner table, and this guy was a guy next to me was a competitive marathoner, and he said, yeah, it's like funny you say that, just 6 months ago I just had my hip replaced, so yeah. It's like, athletes kill themselves basically, it's not all roses, so, and forget about of course martial artists or boxers or people in the martial. Look, even track and field can ruin your body, but definitely the people. I watch MMA because I know martial arts and I really enjoy it, but I know these guys are literally taking a beating, and it's not going to be good for them, when they're in the 50s and 60s, unfortunately. But they want the fame, but that's fine if you're competing, you're a professional. That's what you need to do. The risks. But so many people, and I think this is such a bad trend, this CrossFit. I'm having dinner tonight with a friend of mine. He's so jacked. He's in the CrossFit. Looks amazing. But it's so bad for you.
Oh, yeah.
Just
I'm not a big fan of CrossFit, but
100 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, and then you like sprint, and then again 100 push-ups, or like they do crazy stuff, like crazy. So he's already creaking. He feels all the creaking in his body. I'm like, yeah, maybe, but he looks amazing. He's a single guy. He looks totally jacked, like Adonis.
but I think it's important that we, really strike that balance again. And you can spend all your time, and we talked about spiritual, we talked about the physical, and balancing those. But even beyond that, kind of leaning into kind of our intellectual pursuits as well. I mean, my son had about a 2-year career in MMA after, wrestling in high school, and he just walked away from it all, and he just wants to focus on academics, and he's
him.
doing a liberal arts degree. And I mean, we went from having long conversations at night about, his mixed martial arts training to now getting deep into these philosophers and, talking about, different, like he's been into Thomas Aquinas and some of these different, spiritual veins as well. And it's like, oh, this is very different, but this is really exciting as well. And we tend to ignore the different dimensions. And so for you, how do you go about cultivating a greater intellectual depth in this distracted world?
It's a great question. Well, if you could see, I always have about 14 books I'm reading. And you can see behind me.
You got a lot of books behind you, yeah.
Yeah, but on my side, the ones I'm currently reading, and I find it's really, again, it's a great tool, right? You can go on Amazon and you can discover all sorts of great books, right? It recommends things. You can read reviews. It's great for finding books. I picked one up called The Psychedelic DJ. And this is a guy, he uses psilocybin and music to help people in therapy. I don't know if I'm going to become a psychedelic DJ. Don't hold your breath. But it's interesting to read about it. And how he uses it, and how he uses music to take people to higher, different sort of levels. So that's just one of the books I'm reading, and I think it's important to, it's important sometimes to leave, if you're struggling with expanding your intellectual capacity, or you want to learn something new. What I found is one of the best things you can do is change your place. Sometimes literally travel. Travel is a lot of people love traveling, so go to a new place, but then engage with the people there. Engage with the people there, and you'll learn amazing things wherever you travel. So even if you go to Cancun, you're at a resort, leave the resort, go into the city. It's a beautiful little city there, with restaurants, and speak to the waiters, speak to the people. A lot of people know English if you don't know Spanish. And that's one of the ways I travel. And also sometimes when I'm stuck, and again, we get really distracted, right? It's very easy. I hope we can all agree that scrolling mindlessly is not an intellectual pursuit, and it probably doesn't add to your capacity to be centered, right? I hope we can all agree that it doesn't work. So sometimes what I do is I get in my car, which is also traveling, and then I can't scroll, or I can't do stupid things, or turn on the TV. But being in a different place, then I can open up a podcast, or I can open up a book on tape, audiobook. I'm dating myself here. Books on tape.
No books on tape anymore.
Books on tape. We literally used to have books on tapes and CDs. So I open up my Hoopla app, which is everybody can get. It's connected to the libraries. And there's literally billions of books. And I search for something and I start listening to it at 1.5, and being in a different place and forcing yourself to be in a place where you have to do something that will expand your mind. Sometimes you need to get out of the house. That's one of the best tips I can give people. If you stay at home, you'll be in the same routine and you're not going to change. It's easy. So you have to get out, especially today when it's so easy to be at home, right? Because we do our work from home, everything. We can get food delivered to us. So we don't have to talk to anybody. We can just order it. It's really, again, going back to technology, it's really beautiful. But the experience to grow, your intellectual capacity, and just, you have to leave. You have to leave your house. That's the best thing you can do, is leave your house and engage with people. Today it's really weird. Like, some people don't even, like, they think it's weird if you start talking to them, but I talk to strangers. I hit up conversations all the time. And maybe it's because I'm from New York. We're packed in like sardines, and so everybody talks to everybody. And I think it's so important to challenge yourself, and yes, go on travel, and also maybe go to places. Like, my family and I took a trip to Poland, not because it has great beaches, but because it's a incredible country with lots of history. It was like Germany. It's like, people don't know Eastern Europe, but it was amazing to go to. And they had, a lineage of kings and all this stuff, all this great history, and castles, and you name it, and little villages that still look like they're from the 18th century. So I encourage you to try, just leave your house and do something intellectual. Another thing that I've been, I try to use as much as I can, but even now during reading, I use it when I do my work, is because we're so distracted, it's hard to develop yourself, and we need a tool to help us kind of balance our brain. And one of the things that has been shown by science to work is Baroque music. And you can find on YouTube, Baroque for thinking, Baroque for concentration. And if you have it in the background, if you're really like, oh, I want to read, but put on Baroque, put it at a very low volume, just it's in the background. And that the mathematics of that music or something really helps you focus. And the other day, for instance, I was struggling. I'm writing a book on Kabbalah and business, and I was really struggling to write. I put on Baroque, and during that one day, I wrote like 3,000 words, which is a lot. It's like a lot of words.
It's a lot of words.
It's a lot of words. First draft, so I'm going to edit it. They weren't necessarily good words, but I got out like a lot of content, and it was because of the Baroque. It was just listening to it, and it refocuses you. So those are two things. Leave your home and put on Baroque. Baroque has something to it that helps center you, balance you, and like rewires your brain very, very quickly. And science has shown that this works. So that's a really good thing to do. Baroque music.
I'll have to try that.
Oh, absolutely.
I listen to too much classic rock. Maybe it's not helping me focus as much.
Help you focus, yeah. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So let's switch on to emotional now. Where do you see emotional reactivity undermining otherwise intelligent individuals?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I work. Call myself a spiritual business coach. So I work with founders and small business owners, CEOs, primarily some executives. And, I see these folks making terrible decisions based on their intellect, actually, on thinking, right? I think this is right. I know this is right. When you use I think and I know, you're going to get in trouble. Because such a little part of us is the thinking part. We think it is, right? Because our brain is thinking all the time. I mean, I love thinking, right? Look at my head. It's huge. My forehead. I have such a huge brain, right, in there. And it's always telling me, right? It's telling me, you're right. You know what you're doing. And we ignore our emotions. Well, science has shown already today that, right, we have thinking centers in different parts of our body, in our gut, right? We have a gut feeling. Connect emotions, or your heart. We know what heart-based is without even having to define it. So, and the beautiful thing today is that all of this has been shown, like emotional intelligence today has been, tens of thousands of studies have been done at universities on emotional intelligence and heart-based thinking, what that means. So all this is based on data, which is amazing. And so what I'm saying is not something spiritual or woo-woo or anything like that, because there's plenty of data out there that backs me up. So I was also used to be a professor, and I speak from a place of science. So science shows that really very small percentage, you could look at of your decisions, if you want to make good decisions, a very small percentage of it comes from your intellect. You got to include your heart and your gut. And the most successful, and I see this even with my clients, but the most successful, let's say business owners, which is where I focus, small business owners, they make their best decisions like they have a knowing that's beyond their intellect. They feel something, they feel it. And the more you learn to feel the right decision, the better your decisions will be. At least as I see it subjectively, I have a lot of experience now for decades working with business owners. And so we don't want to ignore our feelings. We want to engage them. And just like with me, right, with my first job, where my body was, I was, of course, also like depressed and anxious, and all these negative feelings were coming at me. There were messages. The negative feelings are messages, but certainly to make decisions, we should be in a positive place of emotion. And however you need to get there, you should be in a positive place. But I see people ignoring their feeling centers and going through life by suppressing everything, whether it's through drugs or alcohol or food or TV, however they're suppressing it. But my most successful CEO clients, the ones who double their business like year after year, they're almost like gurus. They teach me, like they're working from their emotional center. They feel it, they know, and we all know it, right? I knew I shouldn't have hired that person, or I had a feeling that was going to be a mistake, or right? We already have that intelligence inside us. We all have it, but we ignore it because we're so brain intellect centered in this world, right? It's so much of this. Now, this is great. I love my intellect, but I know it's very, very limited. So that's where emotions can play a positive role in helping you become more successful, whether you own a business or you have a job. It really just understand that the most successful, and they'll tell you this, the most successful CEOs operate so much from their emotions. Again, when they're in a positive state. I wouldn't make decisions when you're angry or depressed. You're going to make the wrong decision or fearful. But they get themselves, some of them just figured it out. They figured out how to get themselves in a positive, like emotional balanced place. And that's when they make decisions. And they make decisions, to hire people, to fire people, whatever it is, in that state, even if the data's telling them something else.
So we can't rely on our spreadsheets all the time.
Nope. They're just one part, just one point of data. But the gut is really, when I speak about this, I do some keynotes on this, and when I do speaking on this, people nod like they get it. Everybody gets this, but we're too afraid to trust our emotions and our gut.
So let's shift to socially then. Who in your life has permission to challenge you most honestly?
My wife, my kids, my teenage daughters, and my son. They're all family. Family. It's good to have a place where you can be challenged, and that's one of the benefits of having a family and having a mate, husband, wife, something. That's one of the deals in the partnership, is to be able to be challenged and to see through your BS, right? Because I'm a big coach and speaker and blah, blah, blah. But when I get home, no matter like how much words of wisdom, I've spewed forth during my day on Zoom calls or at events, I come home, my kids are like, "Shut up, Dad." So that really helps. And we should take that as an opportunity, our family, like we know our family the best. We know them, right? again, from an emotional, we've been with them, we feel them. They can give you great feedback. And then again, just as I'm a coach, I also have a couple coaches who give me no nonsense feedback. That's very, very important. And I'm so happy that coaching has grown as a profession. There's a lot of bad coaches out there because you don't need a license. I wish it was licensed, kind of like psychologists, or you just can't be a therapist, right? You need to have 1,000 hours of training. You have to go through schooling to become a licensed mental health care practitioner. But nevertheless, if you find a great coach, if you need a life coach, if it's for your life, or career coach, or there's all coaches for all, look around. It's really great. It's a great investment because you can accelerate your success and your ability to be fulfilled at an exponential level. And especially, right, I coach CEOs, the ones who figure out CEOs. The problem with CEOs is nobody's telling them what to do. They're the owner. They're the boss of this $20 million company. They have 80 employees. None of their employees are, they don't want to, talk back to their boss. So the smart ones figure out, maybe I need somebody who's almost like a board member, who can tell me the hard truths. And so also compliment me. By the way, like CEOs, one of the best things you can do, whoever you report to, whoever your boss is let them know how good they're doing. People forget to do that. People think, oh, my boss, he's fine. No, he or she is also a human being, and they love to get feedback. Wow, you're doing a great job. You're the best boss I ever had. Butter them up. It can only help. No, but really to compliment people above you and give them good feedback is important. So I do that as well. I tell my clients, and some of them are very so successful. I tell them how proud I am of the work they're doing, and they feel like little children. They're so happy to hear it because nobody tells them in their life that they're doing a good job, and it's hard work they're doing. Some of them are working 80, 90 hours a week, right? Building these companies and paying themselves last, and they have to make payroll. I just got off the phone with somebody. He's with his kid. He's getting a divorce, so he's with his little daughter, and he's driving around. He's doing a coaching call with me, and he's going in with his kid to the sales manager's meeting at his company, juggling a million things. And speaking to lawyers because he's going through a divorce, all this stuff. And I told him how proud I am of him. He's doing amazing, even though all this chaos is going around. And he really liked it. And he's, in his beautiful, I don't know what kind of car he has, but it's like leather. He's very rich, obviously. And he's driving around in this beautiful car, and he just loved hearing it. So anyway, coaching, let's say your family is really important, and find a coach who can help you. There's also group coaching if it's too expensive to an individual, but it's the best investment you can make in yourself. As you know, no athlete thinks about getting to the top without a coach, right? Yeah. We know that in some fields we have that, right? We have coaches in athletics. You could put together the best basketball, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You can put together the best crew of basketball players. If they don't have a coach, they're going to lose every game. So that's how we have to look at our life. It is a sport. It is a competition. There's a lot of work to be done, and a coach can help us. A good coach can help you get to the next level and keep going higher and higher. So it's a long answer to a short question. My coaches smack me across the face, and that's great.
Yeah. Good kind of smack, right?
Yeah, good smack.
So how do we distinguish between what is urgent and what is truly important?
Wow.
I'm sure you deal with that a lot.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of my things is, urgent and important, right? There's two things. And all the urgent things, who is it? Eisenhower said that, or Truman? He comes to the table. Do you know this? Eisenhower said he gets to his desk every morning, and there's two kinds of things on his desk: important things and urgent things. And his job was to focus on the important things, unless you really can, because everything is urgent all the time. I can tell you from, at least from the way I coach my business clients, is that they need to have time in their week, where you call it focus time, strategic time, whatever you want to call it, where you can disconnect from the day to day and all the urgent things that are happening, the day to day things, and focus on the important things. Take time to even figure out what are those important things. And they're always related around getting healthier, growth for your business, right? All the full, creating a plan, planning, all these kind of things. So I don't tell people what the important thing is. I encourage them to have time and space when they can think about it and write down on a piece of paper or on their laptop, what are the most important things for my growth as a human being, or as a business owner, or as a husband or wife, or what have you, or as a father, right? It's all holistic. And then you have other, let's call it strategic time or focus time, or you can call it important, where then you can work on those things. So you have to find time, an hour a day, 2 hours, 3 times a week, something where you find that time. Now, for a lot of people, they said, listen, I don't have time to work on important things. I'm a single dad. I have 3 kids. I have this crazy job. And I get that. Everybody goes through that phase. In the beginning, focusing on your focus time or strategic time, it's going to actually take more time. For sure, you'll have to invest even more time into it. But in the medium term and the long term, you will see that as you focus on the important things, your other time will free up. The urgent things won't seem that urgent anymore. And you'll get a sense of fulfillment in your life. So when you'll have more, energy stores will open up, because we're all ignoring certain things that we should be doing and we're not. So when you start focusing on those things, even though you may sleep less in the beginning and have to work more, you'll become more fulfilled. You'll become happier. You'll become more balanced and centered. And so then it'll be much easier to handle the miscellaneous stuff. I was speaking with a client who she's a very successful person in the entertainment field, and she gets this thing about focus time, but she had all this miscellaneous stuff, and she decided, this weekend, instead of doing whatever she was doing, she got through all her miscellaneous stuff, the urgent stuff, and family stuff too, and fixing things in the house and all these kind of things. And I've taught her to segment her week, so that she works on the miscellaneous stuff one day, she works on her business the other day, and then she's working on these incredible projects, big projects that can change the world, and she needs to find days to do that. So I've taught her to segment days. I call it, it's not for me, I didn't coin this phrase, but maker days, management days and maker days. So management days are when you manage your life, your week, your business. And then maker days is when, if you can get to have a whole maker day, when you focus on your big projects and you turn off your phone, you let everybody know this is a maker day or focus time, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, the goal is to get to like whole days where you can just focus on the important things. But even 2 hours, I think the sweet spot is 2 hours, 3 times a week. For most of my CEOs, that's plenty. And they know, everybody knows what their important stuff is. They figure it out. Sometimes you need a coach to help you organize it and to keep you accountable, because something comes up, right? You get a call, if you don't have your phone off, oh, my kid's calling, or this client's calling, or whatever, and you take it, oh, I forgot I have to go grocery shopping, and you put the important, no, you commit to it, because your focus time or your maker date, whatever you want to call it, is the thing that's going to fulfill you in life the most. So the end result is that you look back on your year and you go, wow, I feel fulfilled. So when you look back on your year, you don't look at it like, oh, I didn't sleep enough. No, you won't think about sleeping less. You'll actually be fulfilled from doing all these important things. So you'll see it's one thing to be up late at night, right, and watch some Netflix, some show all night, right? 13 episodes. I got to get through the season, right? Of course, if you do that all the time, you look back on your year, you'll feel pretty empty. But if you spent all night, like someone's up even Saturday night, I'm writing or I'm doing things and late into the night, I look back on those times and go, wow, that was really great. I did that. So
yeah, I like the work of, I don't know if you've ever heard of Rory Vaden, I believe is his last name. I think his book was The Power of Procrastination or Positive Procrastination, something like that. It had something to do with procrastination. But he took Stephen Covey's work, where Stephen Covey had his quadrant. It was like urgent versus important. And he took it to a third dimension, which was the significance piece. Is it significant? Because it can be urgent and it can be important, but is it really significant?
That's a great distinction. Yeah. And by the way, speaking of procrastination, it's not really procrastination. I think it's very important because the same executive, the same CEO, I told her in a recent conversation that she should just not do anything. Sometimes that's really important. Not procrastination. It's very positive to take a day off. She loves hiking and going to the beach, and she's out on the West Coast. I'm like, you need to do that one day. Just go and journal. She loves journaling and meditating. She's like she loves the beach, so go. And she's like, when was the last time you were at the beach? She's like, she doesn't remember. So sometimes it's really important, and that could be part of your focus. Take a half a day and go to the beach. If you live by the coast, let's say, it doesn't matter if it's cold or hot. It doesn't matter. Water's always nice, or forest or whatever. Go somewhere and do nothing. Don't have maybe have a book with you, but don't take your phone. Just go and do nothing. Sit in your backyard looking at the trees. And it's very powerful. So it's similar to that, but it's not really procrastination, because you're not procrastinating. You're proactively doing something that's wasting time. Right. But you're doing it with the intention of disconnecting from everything. Kind of like what I keep the Jewish Sabbath. It's Friday here, sun goes down. It's such a great practice, especially today in our world. I don't use electronics. I don't answer the phone, nothing. It's kind of boring sometimes, right? Yeah. Especially when the sun, in the summer, the sun sets, because it's from sundown to sundown, and it's sundown plus an hour. So in the summer, it can be like 9, 10 o'clock before Shabbat gets out. But man, it's great, because then I'm so energized for the week. And all I could do is just be with my family, or I could read books. They're not electronic. So I catch up on a lot of books. A lot of these books that I don't get to during the week, even though I know I should on Shabbat, I have nothing else to do. So I'm reading. It's so satisfying, right, to get through a book. Many people haven't gotten through books in years, even when they love to read, because they're stuck to their phone, or whatever, or Netflix or Hulu or HBO. There's so much streaming, so much distraction.
I think the Sabbath is such a lost practice, and I think we need to recapture that, no matter what our faiths are.
Yeah.
And so, do you believe that human life is moving toward something, and if so, what?
Well, so yes, it is. According to the Kabbalists, it's very interesting. A book called the Zohar, which was written 2,000 years ago, it talks about our time. And it says it's going to be a time of spirituality. And we see that, right? All this technology, it's actually spiritual. We're all becoming more and more spiritual by hook or by crook, because everything is becoming energy. And, not from a new age term, but literally energy. What we're doing now is just energy. We're not really here, right? We're just beams of light being, transmitted through wires and through satellites, right? It's totally trippy when you think about it. So the Zohar talks about this is a time of Oy and Ashrei. So in this time, Oy is how it sounds like Oy, like the Yiddish Oy vey. It's going to be a time of great chaos and also Ashrei blessings, a lot of blessings. And that's the time we're in, where if you add value to the world and you want to connect with people, you can be part of the Ashrei, which is the blessed. But most people, unfortunately, on the Oy, because they're reactive, they don't know how to restrict their impulses, and so they're part of the Oy, and we see that too, great chaos. But our job is not to, yes, we should feel bad for the people who are in the Oy, are in, right, this, that state of negativity. But the best thing we can do for them is actually to be Ashrei, to be blessed, to be sharing and giving and having the right consciousness, because that'll inspire them. I mean, that's the job of a coach, right? My job is not to wallow in people's negativity. That's why you have therapists. They're really good to get through all your problems. My job is to get people to the next level and show them all their blessings, because we really are, yes, there's wars going on and there's terrible things going on and separation, but at the same time, we have great opportunity. So that's where I see the world. And it's interesting, this 2,000-year-old book was talking about our time, called The Age of Aquarius, about this time. And that's why I see people going, ultimately, I think people, can end two ways, right? Hopefully we'll choose the way of the Ashrei, because everything is possible today. You can live in a little village in the middle of Iowa and run a tech company, or get a job in Europe from Iowa, or vice versa, right? Or I have all these people, all these folks I employ who are in the Philippines and Latin America and Bangladesh, right? And they're making dollars working for me and working for my clients. Hundreds of millions of people have been lifted out of poverty because of globalization. You could say globalization is a bad thing. It destroys jobs. That is true. So both things are true. Globalization is bad. If you think it's bad and it's destroying jobs, you're right. But then you're part of the Oy. You're part of the problem. Globalization is also great in this global economy that we have. That if you get just a little bit of training, you can pull I employ people from Africa, people who are, and also in Bangladesh, all these places where the country is very poor, third world, right, whatever you want to call it, but a developing economy, and all these people are working. One of my virtual assistants, her husband is a software engineer. They live in Africa, and he works for a European company. He's making European wages in Africa, right? So,
it's good.
It's really good, really, really good. So that's the opportunity we have. So it's our choice. Where do we put our focus? Because if you put your focus on all the opportunity, it's all there. And also with science and everything in medicine, we really live in a great place where even, right, we don't want to wish cancer on anybody, but even like things like cancers, people are surviving cancers. People are surviving living with AIDS. I'm not saying don't get AIDS, but millions of people have AIDS and they're living with AIDS. Science is amazing. So what are you going to focus on, right? So there's two paths. Hopefully, all these people are trying to separate us and trying to get clicks, right? If you did something controversial, if we did a conspiracy theory podcast or something, we'd get millions of views, right? If we just provoked people. And there's a lot of people doing that. And they make a lot of money and they get a lot of clicks. They know exactly what they're doing, but they're really in it for the money. So if we want to provoke people and tell people how bad things are, that's not a good path. It's not going to solve anything. So hopefully that's my job and your job and all these change makers. Hopefully there's enough of us to steer people to the other path, the path of Ashrei, blessed, because we can all be blessed today if we want to. So that's where I see there's two paths, actually.
I like that. And I kind of use the phrasing, the omega point from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. I think we're talking the same thing. It's just different language. And that's the point of this podcast, is to get people on that path. And so I know you're, looking at the sun going down there in Florida, and we need to get you into your Sabbath. So I like to end every conversation with the same question. If someone listening right now feels scattered or fragmented, and we know many, many people do, what is one step they could take this week to begin becoming more centered?
I would say take a few minutes. I'll show you the exercise. I would say take a few minutes to connect with the greater intelligence inside you. And the greater intelligence, as we spoke about, your emotional intelligence, your heart intelligence. And one of the things you can do this anytime, is if you're unbalanced and you don't know what decision to take, find a quiet place just to relax and slow down your breathing. Very important. It's very useful and practical for your biochemistry. Slow down your breathing and bring your awareness into your heart. And ask go into this, could be a 2-minute meditation. Whatever conundrum or challenge you have, pose it as a question. And breathe slowly and bring your intelligence down into your heart. And ask your heart for an answer. What should I do? But not from here, right? Because this gets us screwed up. But from your heart. Breathe into your heart. And I teach this to CEOs. I teach this to executives. It really works amazingly. Relax, breathe into your heart. Be there a couple minutes. Close your eyes and ask your heart what to do or what the next step is. And then come out of it. And more often than not, you'll have a wonderful answer. So that's what I would recommend people to do. It's a very simple thing to do. And by the way, this has been proven. There's an organization called HeartMath. They've been studying heart-based thinking for 35 or 40 years. So this is also, I know it sounds like, ooh, you're doing meditation. This is science. This works. We have a knowing, greater knowings inside us that we're just not utilizing. So this will change your life. I do it before every meeting, before I have a challenge. I just slow down 2 minutes. You don't need to be mindful or meditate for an hour. That's hard. Just take a minute and go into your heart. That's what I would recommend.
Awesome. It's great advice. And I think we will end there. And hopefully our listeners can just turn this podcast off, take that pause, and get themselves a little bit more centered.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. This has been great.
Thank you. I always appreciate talking with you, and we'll certainly have you back, because I feel like we could have gone another hour or more on this podcast episode.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So you will be back.